Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. And today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and honestly one of the most debated ideas in all history, the kingdom of God.
So what is the kingdom of God? It's a phrase you hear all the time, and it's absolutely central to Christian theology.
This is an idea that has shaped empires and started revolutions. But for all its importance, its exact meaning has been argued over for centuries. Is it a real place, a state of mind, some far-off future event? Or is it something that's happening right here, right now?
And this is where things get really fascinating. On the one hand, you have a whole school of thought that says this is it, this is the main idea, the sun that everything else orbits around. But on the other hand, our source text kind of pumps the brakes and says, hang on, maybe trying to force every single doctrine into this one box is actually a mistake. And that tension is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Okay, so let's get right into that debate. Why would some theologians push back against making Jesus' most central message the core of, everything?
Well, our source lays out 4 big reasons for being a little cautious. First, if you look closely, the phrase kingdom of God is everywhere in the Gospels, but it kind of fades into the background in the rest of the New Testament. Second, nobody can seem to agree on a single definition. Third, as a practical matter, it just hasn't worked that well as a framework to unify all of theology. And finally, and this is a key point, maybe it's the ultimate destination, the end goal, not the foundational blueprint for everything else.
And you can really see that shift in focus happening in the early church. As folks like the Apostle Paul started writing, the conversation began to center less on the kingdom itself and more on Christ. This great quote from the historian Harnack basically says that for the first Christians, the messenger became just as important as the message.
Okay, so with all this scholarly debate swirling around, it kind of begs the question, right? What did Jesus actually say about the kingdom? Let's go back to the source.
What's interesting is that Jesus often talked about the kingdom like it was already here. Not some distant dream, but a present reality, something that was actively growing and developing right here on earth. He described it like a living, breathing force in the world. Just think about some of those famous parables. You know the ones. They all paint this picture of a process that's unfolding. The kingdom starts out tiny, almost invisible, like a mustard seed. It works quietly behind the scenes to change everything, like yeast in a loaf of bread. And it's messy, right? It's a mix of good and bad that won't get sorted out until the very end. It's this organic, in-progress thing. But, and this is a big but, that's not the whole story. Not by a long shot. Just when you think you've got it figured out as this present-day, earthly movement, the whole thing pivots.
Because there's also this strong eschatological dimension to his teaching. Now that's a fancy word, but all it really means is that it points toward the end times, the final events, the ultimate destiny of humanity.
So on the other side of the coin, the kingdom is described as something totally supernatural. It's heavenly. It's an eternal destination that comes down to humanity. It's not a project we can build ourselves. It's a divine gift breaking into our world from the outside.
And this right here, this brings us to the biggest tension of all. Is the kingdom happening now, or is it a promise for the future? And the answer, at least in our source, seems to be, both.
And this chart just lays out that tension perfectly. It is both a present reality, transforming the world from the inside out, and it's a future hope, coming to us from beyond. It's this dynamic idea of the now and not yet that has kept people thinking and arguing for 2,000 years.
So that now and not yet tension leads us straight into another huge question. Is this whole kingdom thing about changing individual hearts, personal faith, or is it about changing all of society?
If you just read the Gospels, it can feel like it's all about what's going on inside a person. Jesus talks so much about matters of the heart, about personal righteousness, about your one-on-one relationship with God.
But here's the twist. While the explicit focus is on that inner life, the principles Jesus lays out are absolutely designed to transform the outer world. He might not give a 5-point plan for economic reform, but his teachings on wealth and loving your neighbor, they contain the seeds of radical social change. After all, his parables aren't set in a monastery. They're about farmers, merchants, and kings.
And this brings us to a really crucial point. The kingdom is a much, much bigger idea than the church. Think of it this way. The church is meant to be the most visible expression of the kingdom, but the kingdom's influence can pop up anywhere its principles are at work, in art, in science, in a social justice movement. So the church might represent the kingdom, but it doesn't contain it.
Okay, so last big piece of the puzzle.
How did this new life for humanity actually get started? This wasn't just a philosophy lecture. According to our text, it had a very specific historical launch.
Our source lays out this clear, three-step launch sequence. It wasn't just the teachings, it was the whole package. Christ's death and resurrection built the foundation. His ascension into heaven established his authority. And then, at Pentecost, the sending of the Spirit was like the official kickoff, transforming this idea into a full-blown movement on earth.
And the implication here is pretty profound. The kingdom works by changing individuals first, from the inside out. Then, those changed individuals become the agents of transformation in every single part of society. It's like a bottom-up revolution that starts in the human heart and then ripples outward to change the world.
This dream of a world completely remade, it's an ancient hope, and it found this powerful new expression in the idea of the kingdom. This incredible quote captures that grand vision, a world literally being reshaped, leveled out, and prepared for something amazing.
And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. Whether you see it as a present force or a future hope, an inner reality or a vision for society, this idea of the kingdom of God is still incredibly powerful. It keeps challenging us and pushing us to ask what it really means to build a better world, and where that transformation truly comes from.